Did you? How packed was it?
But they had that stuff. Well, there was a lot of parents there for that.
Oh, really?
That would leave. There were a lot of, they were handing out the park stuff and all that, but I never knew. When he came, quashed a lot of that at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, it did.
And he did a good job. He just had Helena explain the legislation that just came down.
Which legislation?
I guess the Senate, the state Senate approved the bill, or assembly, and then it's going to the Senate, so that it's not, there won't be teachers' evaluations or student placement until 2018.
Not right now, it's not.
We're going to head over there again.
For Megan's sake, I'm glad it was field small tonight.
Kids did a great job. Yeah, some really nice presentations. Some kind of missed the mark, but for the most part, those kids put a lot of time into it.
How much was the kids versus the over-involved parents?
I don't know, because there was a man there who was from Shop Associates, like an engineering firm. He was helping too. And it's funny, like a lot of the stuff on there, you can tell some of them, they were only allowed to spend $100, and some of them used it well, and others,
Not much.
yeah. Or they used it, but they didn't see that it was one with them over. It probably would have cost them a little more, but then their overall presentation was good. But they were nice, they did a nice job.
I heard a rumor that the meeting or something like that.
Really?
Like I said, it was a rumor.
What's that? Oh, it was full.
Mr. Cooper actually said it really well on Facebook that you're upset with the superintendent, great, but there are laws in place that delineate what the superintendent can do and what the board can do. And just because you're upset at the superintendent doesn't necessarily mean that the board can do anything.
And that's the unfortunate part. And you know what, a lot of those people aren't educated who are nationwide, they're not spending the time to learn what they can and can't do. And hopefully, by going and participating, because a lot of them are looking for participating before anyway.
Some of the and some of the people have come I think there. I'm not a big fan of Rockford by any means. But
There's some things I really like the STEM stuff. I think it's wonderful. It's a great program.
specifically, I dislike the way he engages with people of the community who are not his fans.
Well, I saw that little last night. And Mike said to someone, one woman came up and talked, and then the second one, he goes, "You're going to keep it short."
Wait, George said that, or Mike said
Mike said
that?
that. And I was a little bit taken aback, but I hadn't been to a previous meeting where that person spoke, so I don't know.
I can guess who it was.
Sarah, and then Lexus is the other's last name. The second person is Lexus.
You didn't bring me any the last time you brought some. I don't even bring you. You did last meeting.
There's still cupcake warm in the shop.
There's a box out in the back.
Now, now,
Enjoy those cranberries.
Unfortunately, in my eyes, at least, Rockford isn't helping the situation. He's very close-fisted when it comes to handing out information. And that's one of my big concerns, my big millennial. But
I haven't done enough of those. I mean, they had somebody else assigned to them. Now we've done the skeletons. Now I can. It's nice to be able to be consistent.
Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine notice. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of February the 23rd, 2015 was included in the list of notices sent to Central Record, Burlington County Times, and Courier Post, posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall, and has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. With roll call, Mr. Barton.
Present.
Mr. Franzen.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, we'll have public comment on the agenda items only, except for first reading ordinances. Discussion will be held during public hearings for our second readings. You'll have 3 minutes to state what you have questions on or comments on the agenda items. Please raise your hand and come forward and recognize. Yes.
John Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. I have a few comments and questions about the discussion that concerned the closed session last time. Mr. Lang went into a very elaborate speech about a lawsuit. I think this has been kicked around in the legislature before too. And part of the law was to protect farmers, which everybody agrees that you have to protect farmers. But there's another part of the law too that came down later on. It said you can't go out and buy 2 chickens and a goat and consider yourself a farm. That was part of the law, or the legislation there was that you now had to provide proof of income on a farm. And this is, I assume that's what we were talking about last week, that they would want to make the income available. Is this guy really a farmer? Did we look into that? I understand that he did not allow the assessors to go on his property. At least in my house. Maybe this is something you really need to look a little deeper into. Is this guy really a farmer or not? I don't know who he is, where he is, or anything. But let's protect the real farmers. Let's not protect John Runyon with 2 chickens and a goat and say I have a farm. That was not the intent of the legislature, and it shouldn't be your intent either. You have an obligation not only to protect the farmers, but the taxpayer of the township.
Thank you.
Let me make a comment.
Sure.
Mr. Cooper, I'd be happy to talk to you about the farmland assessment process after the meeting or at any other time. I'm pretty well versed on it, fill out applications myself, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it at any time.
I was just giving a little another side of the story.
I understand.
was-
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other public comment?
Sam Brooks, Moore's Meadow Road. I have a couple questions, some questions about the bill list. On page 1, the BNC fire equipment, what does the ESB in caps stand for?
Go ahead.
Emergency services bill.
Emergency services bill, okay. And on page 2, the Coleman Frenier Allison financial statement charge was $7,000. What is that for?
That's for the preparation of the annual financial statement.
Did you speak up?
The preparation of the annual financial statement.
Oh, okay, that would be the audit?
Not exactly, they're doing the audit now, but it's part of it.
Okay, thank you. The next charge, interstate mobile care, DOT drug and alcohol test. How many people are included in this charge, and do you have a list of people who receive the testing?
Public Works Department.
It's the Public Works Department, okay. And is there any reason that you don't clarify that it's Public Works as opposed to fire company?
Just before I ever had to.
Okay, And will you be doing that in the future to distinguish between public works and fire companies?
Something to consider.
Okay, thank you. The charge of $568.10, the NJR CEV, the solar lease program for the firehouse. Would you explain that a little bit more?
Where is it?
Page 2,
Page
about 2/3 of the way down, Doug, under JR 50.
That's the solar lease that the district went into with NJR Clean Energy,
Okay,
and that's the billing for it.
okay. That's the, I'm sorry,
That's the month, that's, actually it's 2 months' bills.
okay, and how is that working? They're paying, we're paying, what kind of bill are you getting that you are paying? Let's ask it that way.
Getting the bill that the district received before for the usage of electric that they use over what they generate.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. And, let's see, there is a charge or a payment to the Tabernacle Rescue Squad for the Pineland CERT CPR. Would you explain what that is? What that $190 payment is for?
That was for CPR training given to the Pineland CERT by their instructors.
By the Tabernacle Rescue Squad's instructors? Why, and was this just Tabernacle's portion of Pineland CERT, or?
I'm not sure if it was totally no.
So we're having one volunteer organization charge another volunteer organization for an activity?
For the supplies they need and to provide the stuff, yes.
Or this is
Not
just,
necessarily for the trainer, it's for the supplies they need.
it's just supplies?
And the training material and the supplies they need.
And is the training material does the training material go to the recipients, the participants in the, okay. The next one, U.S. Municipal Supply Strobe Power Supply, what was that for?
Public Works Department.
Okay. And is that just to run this strobe light? What are the circumstances that that's used?
A 15-year-old truck, things go bad, it's a replacement part.
Okay, okay. And the last one is virtual at work. The number of people who are included in this is just one firefighter that was fit tested?
I believe it's 2.
2, okay. That's it, thank you.
Any other questions or comments about agenda items only? Closed public portion for agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the bills?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Approval of the minutes, I'll break them into 2 separate. December 29th, 2014, closeout and executive session. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments or corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Abstain.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
January 2nd, 2015, reorganization and workshop. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make it. Second.
Any questions, comments, or corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Abstain.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Ordinance, second reading, ordinance number 2015-4, an ordinance of the Township of Tabernacle amending Appendix A of the revised municipal ordinance entitled Fee Schedule. I'm going to open the floor to public comment now on this ordinance only. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 2015-5, an ordinance of the Township of Tabernacle by which the township becomes a member of the Burlington County Energy Aggregation Program. A public hearing will be set for March 23rd, 2015. Can I have a motion?
I'll make it. Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Mayor, I have a comment on it. Well, I'm not in favor of forcing all the residents into a party or supplier of not their choice, and then they have to opt out. But do I understand the program correct that if we adopt this ordinance, every resident will get a mailing from the energy company that's creating this for the county for them to return, to get out, to go back to their own provider? Is that correct?
That was my understanding.
Everyone who doesn't have an existing contract with an alternate supplier will, yes. If they already have an alternate supplier, they will not, that will stay the same.
Okay. So if we pass the ordinance, everyone will automatically go with the provider that the county selects, but they'll also get a mailing to opt out of that if they don't opt out.
Every residential, commercial has to opt in.
Okay,
They
thank
have
you.
to opt in or they have to opt out?
Commercial has to opt in, residential has to opt out.
So it's, we're putting on the residents to opt out of something that we think that they need to be doing. Is that what it comes down to? I mean, we've seen this at least 3 times, I think, since I've been on committee.
Well, it's
Why
my,
are we doing
it's
that?
my understanding that there's a guaranteed savings at all times over Atlantic City Electric. So,
I guess my point is why are we putting the burden on the taxpayer to opt out of the program?
Because the legislature did.
it wasn't our choice.
The legislature created the law that they could, so this could be created.
Well, that's what I
State law.
understand, but it doesn't mean that we have to pass the ordinance. I mean, it doesn't mean that we have to do it here. They've been here at least twice since I've been on committee, I think. Anyway, we've got a public hearing to talk about it, but I'm not voting for it.
That's fine. Roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Barton.
No.
Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
No.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. You're welcome. Resolution 2015-44, approving emergency temporary appropriations. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. The next 2 resolutions we'll do together. Resolution 2015-45 and 2015-46, approving street opening permit for 6 Wicklow Drive and street opening permit for Old Indian Mills roads, including 8 property. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2015-47, approving a bingo license for the Seneca Booster Club. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Mr. Franzen.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Motion for a parade permit for Delanco Camp Fun Run, 5K Splash and Dash, May 11th, 2015. Do you want to discuss this a little bit?
Okay, the main portion of this event for is 2 loops around trail area they have in park, plus on their private road, Lake Appigappy Drive. A portion of it comes on Irix Causeway, which would be on the side towards their camp where it's closed. That portion that they're using is open for access to Lake Appigappy. The first round, if I remember correctly, Tom, is there. The second round is not. It's interior.
Correct.
Okay. The road will not be closed. There still will be access to it for emergency vehicles to service those houses, or they have traffic control at each end of it with 2 individuals to allow for if somebody has to get back there to get past the runners. And that's the portion of Tabernacle Road that they're using. They need the parade permit.
Can I have a motion, please?
The applicant also requested to waive the fee for that organization.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion including waiving the fee.
Second.
Well, any questions or comments?
Why are we waiving the fee? In what respect?
We have in the past for.
Do we have talked about that at one point? Do we have like a debate, not a debate, but a discussion about setting parameters for waiving fees for particular nonprofits?
You might have, yeah.
And we never really resolved that. Pete, did you have a comment?
Well, it's within the discretion of the committee. Oftentimes, the committee would consider waiving the fee for nonprofit or charitable organizations serving children and other issues. So it's entirely within the province of the committee. Quite frankly, I don't know what the entity is that operates the camp, if it's a nonprofit, Girl Scouts, or what it might be.
Would you like me to?
It's a church.
Would you like the applicant to speak to that?
Sure. If you can come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Tom Chambers, 191 Powell Place Road, representing Delanco Camp. Delanco Camp is a nonprofit Christian summer camp. And the run is going to fund some of our programs for the summer. So we'll be getting a couple of the little nuances in your allowance of waiving the fee. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just to be clear, I'm happy to waive the fee. We need to have a set of parameters for who we waive it for and who we don't moving forward. It's something to work on down the road.
Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to open the floor to public comment. You'll have 3 minutes to make a comment, ask questions. The questions will be covered in our reports following public comment. Raise your hand, come forward when I recognize you, and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Stuart Brooks, Morse Meadow Road. Regarding the email from Jamie Wood to Doug Kramer, subject end of year, this was read into the record at the last meeting. There's mention of $47,000, about $47,046. Can you explain what those monies are? Second question, are they related to services provided only to Tabernacle residents? Third, is that amount an audited amount? Has Mr. Frenier or is Mr. Frenier going to determine the correctness of that amount If not, why not? And my suggestion is that he would, since I gather that's a number that both the rescue squad and the township are going to rely on. Second issue, regarding a bill that was paid at last meeting to the NJTRA in the amount of $600 having to do with equine training. Who provided that training? Was that NJTRA? Was that some other entity? What was the township's involvement in that? Did you receive a request? Did you approve a request to go? Was there some other involvement that this committee had or that the township had? Which tabernacle organizations attended that training? And how many people from each organization attended? And do those organizations themselves have a budget or a line item that includes monies available for training? And if they do, should that bill have been paid by them? And lastly, how was that $600 cost determined? So I know the CERT was involved, Tabernacles, well, the CERT that we're in, I gather we are one of a number of townships in that CERT. Can you explain how the cost was determined and how the cost was apportioned to the township? That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I want to return to the issue of Brooks v. Tabernacle that was discussed at the February 9th meeting. Mr. Lang emphasized that he saw no public purpose in my OPA request, but he failed to mention the public purposes in the public purposes, which were pretty obvious. One is the compliance with the Farmland Assessment Act. The second one is the assurance of the integrity of the township's property assessment and taxation program. And the third public purpose is the maintenance of accurate property assessment records. Now, Mr. Lang, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Renwick, and Mr. Franzen have expressly recognized the latter two purposes, that is the integrity of the assessment system and the accuracy of our tax records. And the committee recognized that public importance as well when it voted to spend at least a minimum of $160,000, maximum $200,000 to reassess the township in 2013. Because these public purposes weren't mentioned, the Lang report didn't educate the public, as Mr. Lang said he would, and the report was a weak foundation for meaningful or informed discussion by the committee. And having said that, for the record, I'm submitting the statement that I developed for my post, the most recent post that regarding this, and I would like to see it in the public record. So I'm giving you a copy, Ms. Barber.
Your copies for the mayor of the committee or just LaShawn?
I just made a copy for LaShawn, but I'd be happy to forward you.
That's fine, she'll give us one.
Okay.
I just thought if you had it with you.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's okay.
I just wrote one copy. I actually want to go back to a question I asked about the bill list, and that has to do with that Tabernacle Rescue Squad CPR training. How many people were involved in that? How many people participated? Do you know?
We're going to answer the questions in our reports.
Oh, okay. So, I'd like to know how many people participated. And that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Ray McCarty, 368 Tuckerton Road. The issue of the property tax lawsuit is a vexing one. And I've long maintained that the system that we have for property taxes is ridiculous. It can't possibly be accurate at any given time because prices change, house values change. Part of this lawsuit is, the issue is whether the income taxes on the property should be public knowledge or not. And they shouldn't be. Now, why should the values of our houses be public knowledge? I mean, that's private information. The whole system of somebody coming out and looking over your place, and it's intrusive. It's a violation of your privacy. And this whole issue would be a non-issue if, in fact, some much simpler, far less complex, less expensive way, less intrusive way of somehow taxing us for a local purpose tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Jason with the Back Worship Court. I just want to give a big shout out to the public works guys. I know it typically happens after snowstorms, but I have a personal anecdote to tell this time, and I wanted to wait till I had something personal today. Last Monday night, I knew I was going to be working home on Tuesday, so I took my trash out Monday night rather than knowing I'd have to get bundled up first thing Tuesday morning to do it. The trash out next to my mailbox, went to bed, woke up, had breakfast, got ready for my first phone call of the day, heard the snowplows in the street, went, oh crap, the snowplows are going to get my trash. I ran to the window to see how bad it was, saw the snowplow coming right towards my trash can, stopped, back up about 10 feet, go around my trash can, and make my morning so much better than it could have been. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I close public comment and enter into committee reports. Township engineer.
Basically have nothing at this moment with the weather, and just wait for it to turn, so.
Thank you. Bill?
What I have tonight, the simplest question I can answer from before is 19 members were trained in CPR. The rest of the questions asked both by Stuart and Mrs. Brooks, I will have to get back to you. I do not have that was an email that was sent to me. I reported on it. I do not have it in front of me again. I will get back to you by the next meeting.
Is that, you're talking about the training, the equine training?
The equine training, I will have to talk to Mr. Lowe to get the particulars that were asked about. So by next meeting, I should have those.
Maybe he can come and speak a little bit about it.
And if we can bring him to talk more about it, we will. Okay? Thank you. All right, Fran? Okay. Now, we'll move on to the budget. What you have before you is the combination budget of what has occurred this past year, the beginning of this year, of bringing the fire district's budget into the township budget. As you go through, you'll see that budget worksheets look similar to what you've looked at previous years. You have each individual department. The expenditures basically mirror, for the most part, what was spent last year or what was budgeted last year. We do have some minor exceptions to that. Administration, O&E went up about $3,000 over what we expended last year. We have some additional cost each year for the, where we're headed with our website and those management fees. We also have some computer maintenance stuff that has went up slightly. I anticipated on some purchases for that next year. Clerk's office stays relatively the same. Committee stays the same. Financial administration went up. Where are we at? Okay. Financial went up roughly $1,000. That's anticipated on some licensing fees for some programs we have. Annual audit reflects the cost of doing both our own audit and the final audit for the district. I do need here shortly direction on which firm you would like to do the audit for the district, whether they're an existing firm that has done it before or whether our firm will do it. Prices are similar, but our audit firm is slightly higher.
Do you have everything you need to complete that?
Yes, I do. I have everything that's in the vault. It's in the vault now, ready for whichever audit firm you decide needs to. We need to have that done by April.
So we need to get on it.
So we need a discussion on that and a decision. Collection of taxes went up again. That's Edmunds license fees. Is anticipated to go up slightly on that. We do offer through Edmunds where residents can pay with a credit card. Through they control that system. So we do not have anybody's financial records or anything like that in our possession. It's a secure website that they run completely. A number of towns around us have used it for a few more years than we have. Assessment. Went up slightly, and that's to reflect anticipated increase in salary. Since we're in a shared services with Shimon, that salary comes out of operating expenses rather than payroll. Legal has went up. We've raised that to take care of anticipated expenses this year for legal, slightly higher than what we ended up spending last year, but we anticipate at least what looks on the horizon as a number of possibility of lawsuits this year that we'll have to at least defend to start with. Engineering, we've raised engineering up. We have a number of, we have to finish our 2011 recreation grant, which the engineering should be mostly done for that, although we have some drainage that I'm meeting with Dan tomorrow to finalize where we need to go for the drainage for around the concession stand. Also, we have the block grant to do for the ADA accessibility to the bleachers. That has to be taken, that can't be included in the grant. That's an engineering fee that has to be paid separately and can't be applied on the grant. We have that program to finish out this year. And we anticipate a road program again this year, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the capital budget. So those expenses are in there. Planning board, actually remained the same. Construction has gone up slightly from over what the budget was. They anticipate an increase. Computer automation update is in the Roadrunner system. There'll be some updates in there that we anticipate being a little more expensive than what they've been in the past. We're at the tail end of the program with them starting another. Liability insurance and workman's comp have went up with the addition of the fire company. We've anticipated funding that out of a portion of that out of the old district budget. Allow us to bring that in. I do not have a final number on everything. We're in the process of finishing that up. I should have that shortly, and that should be in our second assessment this year. I have an estimate, but I don't have a final number. Group insurance, we are at the, last year was our final year of increases in employee contribution. So we are maxed out at that, and that reflects the increase in the overall cost of healthcare, but also reflects the increase in the employees' contribution. So it's reduced from what the encumbered amount is, but the adopted version has included that. We also expect additional retirement this year with a 25-year employee. So those health benefits will remain throughout the year. Retirement will be in the beginning of the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. Emergency management. You'll see that we've added what Mr. Lowe was talking about, Colonel Lowe was talking about, and a miscellaneous item, storm related, to pay for storm expenses, and that's basically what his budget is going up. You'll see contribution to the first aid squad in there. We've reduced the amount by the combination amount by $4,000. We've left the contribution from the fire company and reduced our own contribution by $4,000. There's a contribution for the fire company. There was some discussion or some questions at the last meeting concerning rentals and the cost of the building and how we were going to divide that up. We anticipate working with the Tabernacle Fire Company to come up with a contract to let them supplement the utilities and come back to, so they would pick up the cost of the utilities for running the building. We're working on an arrangement with that, but I don't have that finalized yet. If you're in agreement with the budget numbers, then that gives me a direction I can go with. Public Works. See an increase in traffic line painting. We have let that not stay as current as our program once was. We'd like to get back to being able to stripe at least a couple roads each year to keep our standards and the reflectivity of the center lines up to par. Also, you'll see an increase in vehicle repairs. That's based on what we spent last year and anticipated need for this year. You'll also see an increase in street and road material. Cost of asphalt had been going up come back down. It hasn't been reflected in the bag asphalt we use in the winter yet, but we hope that in the spring when we go to buy bulk material, that will be helpful in that overall cost. But we have a number of drainage issues to mitigate that we anticipate, some being done in capital and some being done in-house. Now we'll go over them in the capital budget. You'll see under Public Works, the items below miscellaneous are fire company items. We've tried to use the numbers that the district used last year in training, communications, and their truck repair, clothing, and we have some miscellaneous funds that are also included in that. Solid waste, we are about ready to, this year, we will get the contract ready. We are ready to go out for another 5-year contract. We've had, in the 5th year, we've had an increase in the collection rate, and we anticipate less than a 2% increase in our tipping fees from the county. That's reflective on that. Buildings and grounds. We put some money back into the parks and fertilizer and seed. We've increased our plumbing repairs and the addition of 2 more buildings. We anticipate some plumbing repairs and improvements in both the firehouse and the community center. And basically an increase in repairs. We also have a big item in there is we have a fire company in the building. We put $65,000 towards repairs in the building. They have some possible structural issues near the front in the old firehouse portion that they've done some preliminary stuff on before when it was the district, and I talked to Mr. Perry. So we have some there, and we have some minor improvements and some doors and that we need to bring up, some improvements on that. So we're hoping to use that money out of there. And that's the main increase really in the overall budget in buildings and grounds. Department of Health O&E stayed the same. Contribution to agencies went up slightly. We have more requests each year than we have funds for the Catholic charity that provides housing for residents. So we look to increase that funding a little bit. The recreation O&E budget stayed the same. And the utilities and bulk purchases, we looked to have an increase in power, slightly more in street lighting, telephone, roughly the same. Heating oil, when I say heating oil, we also mean gas, natural gas. So we expect some expenses. In that, we have 2 heaters to replace, one in the community center and one in the annex. And both of those have been piped for gas. So we'll be looking to buy those 2 heaters this year and hopefully have some savings. Diesel fuel and gasoline has increased. That's mainly to cover the cost of the addition of the fire company, which we have picked up since the end of December. Landfill monitoring fees, monitoring only stayed the same. We seem to be very competitive in that bid or quote situation to have our monitoring wells and the state reports filed. didn't anticipate that going on. And the contingent is where we had put money to demolish the house. The houses we've done so far, we've increased that to 50,000 over the 30, in hopes that we can take care of the one on Lee Drive and the one when you get through court on Wimbledon Way. Based on that, that was, see, Social Security is one I'm slightly anticipating that need. Public Works Retirement Systems went up slightly. Public Defender is now in court, O&E. That has went up to reflect that. Now we get to see appropriations inside the cap, outside the cap. You see we haven't put any grant money in as of right now. We only anticipate the recycling grant, which is normally 2 years behind schedule. And so once we get an idea where that number is, we'll add it in at that point in time. We have not been awarded DOT grant yet for this coming year. Given where the Transportation Trust Fund is, I'm not sure we will be, but there's always hope. We talked about when we get the final number on Municipal Alliance grant, and if the number hasn't changed from the supplemental fire grant, which let me clarify from last meeting, cannot be spent on anything, it has to be spent on a fire suppression type operation, one way or the other, whether it's equipment or whether it's service. And we will ask for a statement from the fire company on what they've spent it on by the end of the year to make that sure. Although I've not found that anywhere in the district's notes anywhere. I'm sure there was some discussion about it in one of their meetings, but I didn't have anything official on that I've come across. Clean Community Grant should be finalized here shortly. And we have not applied again for any additional recreation grants. We'll take a look at choose a late May, June timetable what we need to do. And we'll meet with the Space Committee and Recreation, see if there's anything else we need to do, see how far we get with our existing grants. We have a 2013 grant that we've sent some preliminary money in bleachers. We continue to do that, and we hope to meeting with Mr. Guzzi to talk about the rest of that grant, which is the dugout roofs and the shelters that go over top of the picnic tables at both playgrounds. So we'll look at that.
What's standard about dugout roofs?
Because
Is it a permanent structure?
Yeah. Well, I'll take a look at that, see what we need. We need to go out to bid for it. In all honesty, our volunteers are used up on what we have so far, and we're not going to have. So rather than go down the volunteer road again, I figured we would bid them all and use the money to get them. So I'll need a set of specifications.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Are you doing both parks?
Yes. Yeah, that was the intent of the grant, was to do both dugouts and do the shelters or roof structures over top of the two picnic tables at both playgrounds. If there's sufficient funds after that, I'd like to look at a structure to go put some more tables in near the concession stand at some point in time and put a cover over them. But that may be something that we apply for in another grant at this point in time. My main goal with that grant is to finish, to work with the Community Development Block Grant which will do the pathways and the concrete slabs for the bleachers, and then we bring all of our bleachers into ADA compliance and safety compliances with the railing. So that's at both parks.
They look really nice. They seem up. They look really good.
That's what we hope to do. Slightly smaller than the lit fields, except if we're only having one bleacher, we may go with the same size bleacher. Right now, those bleachers are available in state contract, and we will continue to use the state contract to purchase them, and the department has assembled them. So that usually seems to be the cheapest way for us to get that in there and get the most out of our grant money. So we anticipate continuing that and trying to finish it up next year. Or this year, excuse me. You'll see in the capital improvement fund, we've raised our down payment money up to $125,000. That's to allow us to bond for $2.5 million. $2.5 million. We do have some money left in there, so we can go slightly higher if committee wishes. And that's where we are. Anyway, the back, let's see, our bond payments have went up, our bond interest has gone down, our note interest has gone down. Our Green Acres loan payments are getting near the end. We should be 1 or 2 years. It's 2 years. 2 years out, and our Green Acres loan should be done. And you'll see the amount for unreserved for uncollected taxes, which is current. Is that correct? So that should be correct. That shouldn't have to be adjusted. You'll see in the capital budget, I'll go there first. The fire truck we've handled separately. With the 108 in capital reserve that we used from the fire district budget that they had, the residents had voted on as a payment. We've used that in there, so that'll be $592. We've anticipated $1 million in our 2015 road program. And what I'd like to address with that is we have a number of issues that need to be mitigated drainage-wise on our roads. The most serious, I think, right now is the rural road issue at Kramer, Wynn, and Hill. This winter we've had a fair amount of flooding that freezes and essentially looks like an iceberg when we run through it and try to plow it off. And the amount of ice that we have, it just the capacity of those drains, when that road was put in, there's a number of drains. It's very small pipe. It's under 10-inch drainage pipe in there. And I'm not quite sure whether that is because there's a clay layer and they tried to stay above it, or whether that's what the specs were back then. I don't have those old drawings to know for sure what that was. But we need to address how that is all looked at. I know we've had our engineer look at it a while ago and do some basic configurations on where we thought we would be, but we need to move forward on that and get that resolved. We also have the issue of water on Gate Road that we need to address. We also have the water at 3 locations on Zimmerman Road that we need to address. There are capacity situations, so we'll need to add more pipe or larger diameter pipe to get the initial flooding off the road like we did over at the school. We increased the capacity there, and only in our hardest rains and worst situations do we have water standing in front of the school at this point in time. And it seems to dissipate probably in about half the amount of time that it did before. So we'll have to look at that. We also have the issue on Hawkins Road between 206 and Richter Road in front of the firehouse. We have flooding there. We need to address that. And when we do that, we should probably address the the firehouse parking lot and what the issues were with pilings on that, and see if we can resolve all of them at one time.
Is there a fine attached to that?
I don't believe so. We have an issue that we need to address on Hill Road with pilings. We've been in contact with them off and on. So when we do that, we'll try to tie those projects all together, the Hill and Royal Road issues together, and resolve that. And we have also an issue on Sleepy Hollow Drive. We have a drainage issue, which is the back of what used to be Royal Court before they made the cut through into Sleepy Hollow. That drainage, when that was combined together, didn't match up. We have a problem on the old cul-de-sac that does a fairly good job of flooding two properties there, at least their driveway entrances and the entire road. So we've tied that into a paving issue there. The old portion of Royal Court is in rough shape. So we'll look at how we can tie that drainage repair and the paving of that together. So that's one of the streets we'd like to look at. As I said in my report last month about Lakeview Drive, we need to look at that, and if funds allow, I'd like to at least get the preliminary work done on that and possibly at least pave a portion of it, if not all of it. So I've got a lot of small projects that probably are more expensive than we anticipate, but my main goal is to take care of the drainage issues at the number of different locations at this point, and deal with them. I've also asked for funding for a medium dump truck with a plow and sander, a large dump truck, plow and sander. I have two 2001 trucks, actually I have three, but one of them we're going to keep for another year or two, that we have purchased in the year 2000, they were 2001 models. We're coming up on the 15-year life expectancy plan. They have, the cost of maintenance has increased the last few years, and it's starting to get more serious with the age of the truck and the condition that salt and calcium cause on those vehicles. Also, we asked for a pickup with a plow to replace truck 6. Truck 6 and truck 5, which is the medium dump truck, is 5 and 6 is the pickup. The state of New Jersey has denied the exemption on the pollution apparatus that needs to go on it, although nothing would fit at the last when our vendor was here. So we've talked about that we were considering replacing them. So they may give us an exemption for a year, year and a half.
Say that again.
We're required under statute to retrofit all of our diesel trucks with catalytic converters, essentially.
Is that because they're municipal trucks?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have done 2 of them. All of them have been surveyed and applied for. 2 have gotten approvals. Actually, 4 got approvals. 2 of them couldn't be installed when they got here because there was a space limitation on the physical size of the truck to do it. That was done 2 years, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. The other trucks have not been accepted or denied at this point in time, other than the rest of them. So where we are at with those 2 is we have learned in this 2-year period that they're a maintenance headache. We've had Truck 6, which is a medium-sized plow truck, has been on the, essentially it's a cooker. That's an electric box that heats the elements up to try to burn out what doesn't take place in normal operation. In the last week, we've had it on for 15 hours. Essentially, we ran it for the storm. We cooked it on Friday, ran it on the storm for Saturday and Sunday morning, and had to cook it again today because it would not allow the truck to run at any speed. It'll limp along, but that's about what it does.
It uses more fuel too, doesn't it?
Yes. So, in the grand scheme, from a maintenance standpoint, it's a nightmare. The newer trucks, the diesels, will have a incorporated system in it, not an aftermarket stuck on try to make work system. I hear mixed reviews about that. Essentially what they're going to require when we replace them with new trucks. Because we are a slow-speed operation in general, the way trucking looks at us, we don't run down the highway for miles at 65 miles an hour. When all these systems clean everything, and they build up when you're running 30 or 25 or whatever.
In our experience, you just have to take it out on the road for about 3 miles, and it cleans it out.
And that's what I've talked to Shimon, and they have a new truck, and that's exactly what it does. Is as soon as the roads get clear after a snowstorm, they run towards Hammett and turn around and come back. And that's what the problem with the retrofit is. They don't clean that well. There's not a self-clean. And the problem is you can only clean it so many times with the setup they provided us, and then you have to take it out to the manufacturer to have it cleaned. And it's, depending on how stuffed it is, it's anywhere from $500 to $1,300 to clean it that way. And that, they can only do that so many times, and then it's $8,000 to replace the muffler, essentially. So that's the progress I see coming down the road. I see our other trucks being forced to do that. We are in our 15-year replacement plan when we bought these trucks. It's time that we start to do it, and I do it in an orderly fashion, so we can move through these, and so the taxpayers' money is spread more evenly across there. So
There's no mandate for the loader, is there? For the
not as of yet. Right now, it's just garbage trucks, buses, and municipal on-road vehicles. But all the new equipment meets the Tier 4 requirements.
Which burn more fuel than the other ones do.
So that's what we're going to look at. So that's my request for Public Works. We did ask for $1.5 million for township building improvements. That's to include the Pepper House, Town Hall, Community Center, and the Public Works shed. We'd like to put doors on the front of that. We have not a citation, but a recommendation from DOSHA because of the bird. We can't keep the birds out of it nesting up inside the roof inside. That we do something to reduce that. That's been the recommendation for the last 2 years we've had inspections. So we have some money put aside in there to put the doors. We figure by the time we get all said and done, closing that in will probably be about $35,000 to $50,000, somewhere in that range, to do that.
That's the building, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but that's the building you can dismantle.
Yes. Yeah. And we would not do anything to make it undismantled.
Right.
So that's what I have in capital. Terry wants to talk about the income side. Well, before he gets started, is there any questions on the budget? My anticipation is that we talk about this again at our next meeting, and if you're comfortable, or you want to make any changes, that we do that at the next meeting. And if everybody's comfortable with after those changes or no changes, then we look at an introduction either at that meeting or the following meeting. We're backed up against the timetable of introduction by 3/13 or the next meeting following 3/13, and adoption by April the 24th for the next meeting following April the 24th. We have a little wiggle room on the introduction, but we're given the 30-day notice and the ability to put the budget together so the public has it. For the budget hearing, we need that 30-day between the two meetings to make that happen. So for that, I'll let Terry.
You guys have the revenue sheets in front of you, actually the revenue sheet. Basically, all of our revenues are pretty flat, so the state aid that we're getting is going to be the same. The key things that changed was we're using more fund balance this year to cover the extra expenses for the fire department, and we reduced our what we're using from our own capital surplus from 220,000 down to 70,000. But that net effect is no tax increase. So that's basically all. Not much difference in last year's revenues other than those numbers.
So we looked at an overall budget after combining the two budgets of $4,278,086. We anticipate using $426,700, is that correct? Out of the fire budget and towards the fire company expenses. That's down from the $477 that the district used. We anticipate that we, at the end of this year, after we see how things progress, that we may be able to anticipate a little more savings. But at this point in time, we don't have any finalized numbers from a few things. We're err on the side of caution and use those numbers. So, if there's any additional questions from the committee members at this time, like I said, we're scheduled for another discussion on this with any questions you have. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please contact me so I can get you the figures or numbers or backup information for anything that you have a concern about.
This year is the 400,426 that Doug mentioned for the increase for the fire department. This year is the only year that we can have a cap-based adjustment for those funds. After this year, it just becomes, it's part of that 2% cap. So we're allowed to go with 2% cap for all of the fire expenses this year.
It allows us to bring that budget in and not be penalized for it, but if we don't bring it in this year, we lose it.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Stephen?
Nothing for me tonight, thank you, Mayor.
Joe?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Committeeman Franzen and our administrator did meet last week to go to the Building and Grounds Committee, looking at different options, and I'll defer that to community plans and give a more detailed report. And sometime we do want to present it to the public, we get some public input after we show it to the total community, get some feedback.
I just came from along with Committeeman Yates, came from the school board meeting over at the middle school. They had about 12 different future city models over there. The 7th graders had taken up to Rutgers. It was a well-attended event.
Very well done.
I haven't seen that many people at a school board meeting, I don't know, ever. I also met with our new Congressman MacArthur this past Friday. He was up here in the district. They're on a short recess, and he's kind of getting his feet wet in terms of getting used to Washington, the way things work down there. I don't think he's very happy about it. Just as a personal thought, but I think we've got a guy there that can certainly, he can help out our district. The caveat to that, or what I'm bringing back to that, is that they are looking to meet with committee members in each municipality in the district to talk specifically about federal issues that are affecting our township. And we should hear from them here probably within the next couple of weeks. So, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. Joe?
I have actually nothing new to report.
Yeah, on the space stuff, we did spend a good bit of time going over the space plan that we had previously put together, and came to the conclusion that, some conclusions that were a little bit different than we had come to earlier when we completed the plan in the first place. The former squad building, what we call the community service building, is going to be cost prohibitive to repair. The estimates are now somewhere around $1 million to do that building, which is just, it's outrageous. And I think we're coming, and this is just like 3 of us meeting. We have to have a full consensus with the committee yet. But we're coming to conclude that we don't want to throw a lot of money into that building. We did, however, discuss with Doug that it really does need some immediate work, and I think he has that in his capital budget for a new heating plant, lights, and one other thing that I forget, insulation. And I think the heating plant is available possibly with some grant money attached to it that would make it cost us about 30% of what it normally would be. So we're encouraging Doug to continue to look into that. But where this leaves us is we do want to have a meeting, probably at a workshop, where we just go over this and we ask people from the town, and maybe even invite people who run other community organizations in town to come and speak with us about these plans and where we want to go with all of this. We tend to be thinking, and Joe had this idea that, we identify problems with this building in this area, and we tend to be thinking that at the moment it makes no sense to move the court out of here. At the moment, it does make sense not to redo the building down the road and perhaps bring a community meeting center somehow to this location, which probably, and again, this is all, you can see I'm using all these speculative words on purpose, but it probably would mean that we would move Public Works out of here and, either, as Doug likes to call it, make a carriage house over here out of one of the buildings that remain, and use that as an annex so we have less space problems, staff around here now, or put an addition on this building so we could bring everybody under one roof. That was one of the problems we identified. People are a little bit scattered now, staff are scattered. But really there's just a lot of different options out there. It might be possible, as I said, to move Public Works down in the area of where the community center is, and maybe use the community center as a Public Works location. And like I said, all these are just ideas that we got through brainstorming. We're not locked into anything yet, but what we want to do really is have a good discussion with people and talk about what everyone's thoughts might be on that. So I think to that end, that, one of our workshop meetings, if not the March, certainly the April meeting, we'd like to invite some of the community representatives from other organizations, plus everybody who's here that night, to just talk about this. We'll identify the problems we've talked about in the past, pass out perhaps the plan that we've had, and try and go over this and have a good community discussion about it. And that's yes, we have April.
We have budget,
and all that
yeah.
stuff, yeah. Did I miss anything, Joe, or?
No, very good summary, Rick. Thank you.
And I have nothing, so at this moment, we will enter into a motion to go into executive session, whereas the governing body wishes to discuss ongoing litigation matters involving Brooks versus the Township of Tabernacle, over demand for personal financial records pursuant to New Jersey Statute 10:4-12P7. This matter will be discussed in a closed session from which the public shall be excluded. Minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires that confidentiality, then the minutes can be made public.
Mayor, I'm also asking that you amend that motion to discuss a potential litigation matter involving a new demand for an open public record involving personnel records. So I would like to discuss that as well with the committee, as I think that there may be potential for litigation involving that issue as well. So I'd like to cover that tonight as well.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.